Chosen ones. Let this sink in. You didn't survive your drought season for nothing. Every dry day, every tear-soaked prayer, and every unanswered question wasn't a delay. It was divine preparation. Something monumental is coming your way, and this time, it's not another lesson in survival. It's not another test of endurance. No, this time it's sudden, supernatural, purpose-driven wealth. That word may sound unrealistic to the logical mind, but it's completely consistent with how God moves. Throughout Scripture, we see how divine turnaround comes not gradually but swiftly, like Joseph going from prisoner to prime minister overnight, or Ruth moving from gleaning fields to owning them through divine favor. This isn't about luck or coincidence, it's about alignment. God does not throw diamonds at those unready to carry the weight of royalty. He prepares the person long before he releases the promise. Consider Sarai, a modern-day echo of so many biblical stories. She gave selflessly, remained faithful in silence, and endured a long season of lack. Yet that very lack was her training ground. Every time she chose generosity over bitterness, every time she prayed instead of panicked, she was building the character to steward abundance. When her unexpected inheritance finally came, it wasn't just a windfall, it was a release of something she had already grown into. The real transformation had happened, the blessing arrived. The wealth didn't make her. It simply matched who she had become. And this is exactly how God works with His chosen. If you've noticed delays, disappointments, or a sense that you've been hidden, don't misread it. You haven't been forgotten. You've been concealed because rare treasures are never placed on public display too soon. Proverbs 25:2 reminds us that it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. He hides things not from you, but you, until you're ready. And if you've felt a strange internal stirring, a deep knowing that something massive is about to shift, you're not crazy, you're being awakened. Your spiritual DNA is picking up signals your physical eyes can't yet see. This is not some hype about quick riches. This is about divine timing, spiritual maturity, and prophetic fulfillment. We are talking about wealth that doesn't just elevate your bank account, it elevates your destiny. When the chosen ones receive wealth, it's never for personal applause. It's for kingdom purpose, to free others, build visions, fund movements, and dismantle generational curses. That's why your preparation has been so intense. That's why the wilderness felt so long. Because your blessing won't be ordinary, and neither will your impact. So stay tuned. In this video, we're going to break down 7 specific signs that sudden wealth is not only near, it's already been assigned to you. Chosen one, your name is on the vault. Heaven is unlocking something, and when it does, nothing will ever be the same again. Point 1, you've been stripped, but not forsaken. Chosen ones. Let's talk about the stripping season, the one nobody likes to mention, but everybody has to walk through. If you've ever felt like everything you once loved, needed, or relied on was being peeled away piece by piece, people you trusted suddenly gone, comfort zones collapsing, finances drying up, and opportunities vanishing, you weren't being punished. You were being positioned. That pain, it had a purpose. God wasn't abandoning you. He was refining you. Before heaven pours in abundance, it must first clear out the clutter. Before overflow comes, order must be established. See, we don't always realize how tightly we grip the things of this world until God starts to remove them. And He doesn't do it to be cruel. He does it to free us. You couldn't see it then, but the people who walked away, the job you lost, and the money that disappeared, it was all part of a divine detox. You were leaning on things that couldn't hold you, depending on anchors that were never meant to support your soul. So God had to strip away the counterfeit so He could create space for the authentic. And in that emptiness, He taught you the most powerful lesson of all, how to lean fully on Him. The stripping season is sacred. It's the wilderness before the promised land. It's where titles fall off, pride gets humbled, and false identities burn, but it's also where truth rises. And chosen one, here's the truth. You passed the test. That season didn't break you, it built you. When everything was gone and you still chose faith, that was your spiritual certification. Heaven doesn't hand out sudden wealth to just anyone. It comes to those who've proven they won't worship the wealth. They'll worship with it. There's a big difference. You weren't being overlooked, you were being observed. God was watching how you handled lack, how you prayed when nothing made sense, how you kept sowing when you had barely enough for yourself, how you still gave, still smiled, still believed. You thought you were being buried, but really you were being rooted deeply. so that when the abundance comes, and trust me, it's coming, you won't be shaken. You'll be ready. Let's be honest, some of you all were staring at your bank account like, God, are you sure you didn't forget me? Meanwhile, he was quietly making sure your character was richer than your pockets. Because sudden wealth in the hands of someone with no wisdom is just a setup for sudden ruin. But in the hands of someone who's been through the fire and didn't fold, that's kingdom economics. Chosen ones, everything you lost created room for what can't be taken from you. The relationships that ended, they made room for connections aligned with your purpose. The money that disappeared, it made way for resources tied to your calling, not your comfort. And now the harvest is circling your name. Your spiritual address is on heaven's radar. You won't have to chase what's coming. It's been assigned to find you. So when the overflow begins, and it will, remember who you became in the wilderness. Remember how you praised in the drought. That version of you, that's who qualifies for the rain, because the goal was never just to bless you. It was to build you into someone the blessing could trust. Now, you're not just carrying favor, you're carrying foundation. The stripping wasn't the end, it was the beginning of the becoming. And the wealth that's on its way, it's not just for show, it's for service. You were refined for such a time as this. So get ready, chosen one. Your season of overflow isn't coming, it's already on the way. Point 2, you've mastered contentment, not complacency. There's a fine line between being content and being lazy, and chosen ones. You walk that line like seasoned tightrope artists under divine instruction. The world often confuses stillness with stagnation or peace with passivity. But what you've mastered is something few ever do, the spiritual art of being grateful in the now, while still believing for the next. That's not just rare, it's revolutionary. In a culture obsessed with constant hustle, endless upgrades, and loud success, you found power in being present. You don't need the flash of a luxury car or a mansion to validate your worth. You've already learned to be whole without the extras. And that level of emotional and spiritual maturity, that's kingdom energy. See, contentment doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've given in to divine timing. You're not lazy, you're anchored. Your spirit is fixed not on the glitter of the world, but on the gold of purpose. You're not chasing clout, you're building character. And here's the heavenly twist. God trusts people like you with abundance. Why? Because when you're content, money doesn't move you, but give that same money to someone grounded in faith, gratitude, and vision. Now that's someone who will move mountains with it. Chosen ones have this spiritual signature. Lord, bless me so I can be a blessing. That prayer right there, it's currency in the kingdom. When you say that from a place of true humility and readiness, heaven starts to respond. And it's not just poetic. Psychologically, research in behavioral science shows that people who practice gratitude and contentment are more disciplined with finances, make wiser long-term decisions, and are more generous with their resources. In short, content people handle wealth better. So your ability to praise God when the fridge was nearly empty, your joy during the seasons when your bank account said faith walk, all of that has been noted by heaven. You weren't just surviving, you were qualifying. The universe has a funny way of aligning with those who live with purpose. Angels don't just flap around aimlessly, they move on divine assignments. And your prayer didn't float away into the void. It was received, stamped, and sent to the right department. While you were planting seeds of gratitude and endurance, your spiritual bank account was gaining interest. Now the time is approaching for a withdrawal. Not just for your benefit, but for those connected to your purpose, because wealth with no purpose is dangerous. But wealth with divine intention, that's destiny in motion. You've mastered the mindset most people never reach, contentment while still expecting more. You're not throwing a tantrum because it hasn't happened yet. You're building altars in the waiting room. That's why the floodgates are preparing to open. God doesn't bless potential, He blesses preparation. And your content heart, your faithful grind, your willingness to keep showing up even when it didn't feel like anything was moving, that was the movement. And when the blessing comes, it won't catch you off guard. You won't worship the wealth, you'll wield it. You'll build with it, you'll feed with it, you'll fund vision with it. Because your heart's been trained not to serve money, but to serve with it. The waiting didn't weaken you, it made you wise. And now wealth has found a safe place to land, not in a heart full of pride, but in a vessel of purpose. So hold your posture, chosen one. The contentment you've carried isn't just beautiful, it's powerful. And now it's opening the door to everything you were promised. Point 3, you've broken generational patterns. Chosen ones, if you're the one in your family who ever stood up and declared, "This cycle ends with me," then let me be the first to say, you're exactly who wealth is looking for. Not just riches, not just success, but legacy-shifting wealth. Because let's be real, breaking generational curses is not some trendy social media mantra. It's hard, it's lonely, it's emotionally exhausting. It's carrying burdens that aren't even yours, fighting demons your ancestors never named, and deciding without applause that dysfunction stops with you. That's the kind of unseen spiritual labor that shifts entire bloodlines. And you did it anyway. You faced the generational ghosts of financial trauma, those invisible chains that whispered, there will never be enough. You stared down that scarcity mindset that trained your family to survive, not thrive. You said no to overspending, no to lack, no to living paycheck to paycheck just because that's how it's always been. Instead of running from it, you looked it straight in the eye and chose differently. That is spiritual warfare. And that is what heaven rewards. See, God isn't just handing out abundance randomly. He's looking for trustworthy stewards, people who won't let money ruin their morals or inflate their egos. And when you chose responsibility over resentment, wisdom over impulse, and healing over habits, that's when you showed God you're ready. You proved that you wouldn't just repeat your ancestors' financial mistakes, you would redeem them. You turned their struggle into your strategy, their losses into your lessons, their pain into your platform. Now you're not just on track to be rich, you're about to be restorative. This is bigger than buying nice things or paying off debt. You're about to rebuild what they couldn't. You'll create homes that feel like safety, not survival. You'll teach your children about ownership, not just income. You'll invest in dreams that were buried under decades of fear and limitation. And you won't just break the cycle, you'll replace it with a blueprint of prosperity and wisdom that will echo for generations. The truth is, financial trauma is real. Studies show that children raised in poverty are more likely to adopt risk-averse behaviors, chronic stress patterns, and scarcity thinking. But guess what? You rewired that in real time. You unlearned the fear of not enough and replaced it with a vision of more than enough. And that mindset, that inner shift, it's what created space for outer blessings to flow. Because now, you're not just chosen, you're a financial reformer. You're the family architect, designing a future that looks nothing like the past. You're walking banks of wisdom, restoration, and spiritual authority. What used to run in your family runs from you now. You didn't just work hard, you healed hard. And healing hard is what made you ready to hold what they couldn't carry. So when the wealth arrives, and believe me, it's closer than you think, walk in it with humility and holy confidence. Know that it's not just a reward, it's a responsibility. You're not just building for yourself, you're building for kids you haven't met yet, for names you'll never know, for futures you'll never see, but they'll know your name, the one who changed everything. So keep going, chosen one. You're not just breaking cycles, you're building empires. You're not just surviving your family's history, you're rewriting it. And your legacy, it's going to speak forever. Point 4, you've been attracting wealthy ideas. Ever noticed how lately you're waking up at 3 a.m. with a brain buzzing like a spiritual stock market? Ideas flowing like a river that won't quit? You're not losing sleep, you're gaining vision. That sudden burst of inspiration, those business concepts that just won't leave you alone, that's not caffeine or coincidence, that's spiritual pregnancy. Yes, you're pregnant with purpose. And that idea you're carrying, it's not just a fleeting thought, it's a divine seed that, if planted and nurtured, can completely shift your financial atmosphere. See, chosen ones are often used as vessels, not just to receive wisdom, but to birth it into the physical realm. That's how heaven operates, through people willing to be open conduits. You were never meant to just go with the flow. You were born to create the flow. That's why your spirit can't rest. That's why your journal is filled with doodles, diagrams, blueprints, and business names. Those aren't scribbles, love. That's spiritual architecture. That's legacy in its rawest form. What you're experiencing is a divine phenomenon backed by real science. The human brain, especially during early morning REM cycles, is in a theta state, which is the optimal brainwave frequency for receiving downloads, intuition, and ideas from your subconscious mind, or, as we like to say, the spirit. That's why those 3 a.m. wake-up calls hit different. Your soul is listening while your mind is still, and God finally has your full attention. So when that vision flashes across your mind, don't roll over and go back to sleep. Write it down. Scripture even supports this. Write the vision and make it plain. Habakkuk 2:2. God gives downloads to those who document and obey. So yes, that business plan you're procrastinating on, that random idea for a skincare line, an ebook, a podcast, a real estate flip, or even a digital product, it's not random, it's relevant, it's revenue. It's a key to unlock the next phase of your destiny. But here's the catch. God won't bless what you won't build. Heaven can't finance what you won't start. You don't need another confirmation, chosen one. You are the confirmation. You've been trained by life's hardships to be resourceful. That time you made dinner with 2 ingredients, that season. When you survived on faith and hustle, that wasn't just struggle, that was strategy development. Now, God is taking that survival skill and turning it into an empire mentality. What if your breakthrough isn't waiting for you to have it all together, but rather waiting for you to just begin? History is filled with ordinary people who became wealthy simply because they acted on an idea. Did you know Airbnb was born because 2 broke guys in San Francisco rented out air mattresses in their apartment during a conference? They didn't have millions. They had vision and the guts to try. Oprah Winfrey built a media empire on intuition and truth-telling. Rihanna went from pop star to billionaire mogul because she acted on her vision for inclusive beauty. These aren't just success stories, they're spiritual blueprints. They prove one truth. When you treat your idea like treasure, the universe responds accordingly. You don't need a loan, you need courage. You don't need approval, you need obedience. That sketchbook, that voice memo, that what if idea. It's the spark that could ignite generational wealth, because chosen ones don't wait for the world to open a door. They build the house, design the keys, and start the fire themselves. So move, launch the website, take the class, pitch the idea, order the samples. You are pregnant with wealth, purpose, and divine potential, and labor is near. So go ahead, creator, birth it, because what's inside you isn't small, it's sacred, it's seismic, and the world's been waiting for you to release it. Point 5. You've experienced supernatural provision. Let's talk about those seemingly random moments that left you wondering, how did that even happen? You know the ones. Someone randomly cash apps. When your account hits 0, your debt disappears without warning. A stranger ahead of you pays your grocery bill, or food shows up exactly when your stomach growled. Those weren't coincidences, and they certainly weren't lucky accidents. They were spiritual breadcrumbs. Divine winks from the Most High reminding you that He sees you, hears you, and knows exactly what you need. In fact, those moments were a celestial sneak peek at the kind of supernatural provision that's your spiritual birthright. God was whispering, if I can send $1, I can send 1,000,000. Let that marinate. What you experienced wasn't the full meal. It was just the appetizer, a spiritual teaser trailer for the feature film that's about to be your life. Chosen ones don't operate under the same laws of lack that the world does. You live in a different spiritual economy. While the masses chase money, you attract it. While others grind themselves into burnout, you're learning the art of divine alignment. Why? Because when you align with your purpose, you stop chasing and start receiving. Favor flows where purpose lives. Scientifically speaking, this lines up with the law of resonance and quantum alignment. Your beliefs create a frequency. When you vibrate at a level of abundance, gratitude, and expectancy, you draw experiences that match that frequency. That means when you truly believe that you're worthy of provision, not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned, you open a spiritual portal for miracles to manifest in physical form. That dollar in your account wasn't small, it was proof that you're tuned into the right station. All you have to do now is stay aligned and let the station broadcast the full message. Remember, the widow in 1 Kings 17 thought she only had a handful of flour and a drop of oil left. But because she gave in faith, the supply never ran out. That's God's economics. He multiplies what you offer in trust. Those small supernatural blessings you've been experiencing, they were dress rehearsals. He was training your spirit to expect divine provision so you'll be ready when the real blessing lands. Heaven doesn't operate on hustle, it operates on harvest. Yes, the work matters, but chosen ones don't rely solely on labor. You're not just a worker, you're an heir. You've been seeded with divine inheritance. And just like a farmer doesn't dig up the ground every hour to see if the seed grew, you don't need to obsess over the how. You plant with faith, water with obedience, and harvest with joy. Because of this next financial move, it won't look like your effort. It will look like God's favor written all over your life. Think about Joseph. He went from prison to palace in a day. His journey wasn't pretty, but his positioning was prophetic. Every twist and turn prepared him for sudden elevation. That's what God is doing with you. Those small miracles you experienced weren't just to help you, they were to prepare you. Your faith is now calibrated. Your heart is humble. And your hands are ready to receive without guilt, without fear, and without delay. So the next time someone blesses you unexpectedly, don't brush it off as luck. See it for what it truly is. Heaven's way of reminding you that provision doesn't start in your wallet, it starts in your spirit. The breadcrumbs have led you here for a reason. The table is set, the curtain's rising, and you, chosen one, are about to experience abundance, not from your hustle, but from your heritage. Point 6, your character has been refined by fire. You've been lied on, overlooked, betrayed, and pushed aside, and yet here you are, not broken, not bitter, not bankrupt in spirit. In a world where retaliation is glorified and shortcuts are celebrated, you chose a different path. You didn't scam to survive, didn't cheat to climb, and didn't steal to win. While others were finding loopholes and cutting corners, you stood flat-footed in integrity, even when it cost you. And make no mistake, integrity always costs something. But in the spiritual realm, it pays dividends far beyond anything money can buy. Chosen one, that kind of resilience is rare currency in the kingdom of God. See, what most people don't realize is that while man looks at your outer hustle, God's watching your inner posture. He watches how you treat people when no one is clapping. He watches how you behave when you're broken, but still expected to show up. He watches how you respond when betrayal stings and applause is nowhere in sight. And when you chose to remain kind, honest, and humble under pressure, that wasn't weakness. That was royalty training. Let's take a moment to break this down. According to the process of refining gold, raw gold is placed in intense heat, about 1,948 degrees Fahrenheit, to burn away all impurities. The result, pure gold that's more valuable and durable than ever. That's exactly what God has been doing with you. Every betrayal was a flame. Every season of obscurity was a crucible. Every false accusation was heat turning up the process. And now you're not just a survivor, you're refined. You're spiritually pure, and more importantly, you're ready. What does ready look like in the kingdom? It's not just about having skills or smarts. It's about having character. Because in heaven's economy, character is your credit score. It determines the level of blessing, authority, and influence God can release into your hands. And guess what? You're approved. You've been pre-qualified for the overflow, not because you played the game better than others, but because you refused to play dirty when the stakes were high. That's not just admirable, that's spiritual excellence. Think about Job, a man who lost everything, his wealth, his health, his children, yet never cursed God. His friends questioned him, his wife doubted him, but he held on to his integrity. And what happened in the end? The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former. Job 42:12. That wasn't just restoration, it was divine recompense. That's what's coming for you. And here's the twist. This divine overflow is not payback for your pain, it's promotion for your posture. God doesn't just bless you to prove people wrong, He blesses you to prove your heart was right all along. The tables are turning not because you're vindictive, but because you're validated. Every time you chose righteousness over revenge, you stored up spiritual equity, and now heaven's bank is about to release it with interest. So when the blessings start to flood in, when doors you didn't knock on swing open, when favor finds you in rooms you didn't even know existed, don't be shocked. You didn't hustle for it, but you honored your way into it. That's kingdom protocol. It's not about climbing ladders, it's about passing tests. And chosen one, you didn't just pass, you graduated with kingdom honors. In a world obsessed with getting the bag, you secured something far greater, divine trust. And when God can trust your heart, He'll put treasure in your hands, not just for you, but so you can pour into others with the same grace you were refined with. The overflow is not just a reward, it's your release. And honey, it's your time to shine like the gold you've become. Point 7, you know the wealth isn't about you. Here's the truth that makes you stand out in a world obsessed with glitz and glam. You know that money isn't the mission, it's the tool. While most people chase riches for recognition, you've aligned your prosperity with purpose. You're not praying for Bentleys and designer bags, you're praying for capacity. You don't want wealth to floss on Instagram. You want it so you can fund vision, fuel hope, and fix what's broken. That's not just smart, that's divine stewardship. And when heaven sees someone who's more interested in pouring than posting, blessings move fast. Because now God knows your heart is safe with abundance. This kind of mindset isn't just spiritual, it's incredibly rare. Studies in behavioral economics show that when people have a higher purpose tied to their financial goals, they're more likely to succeed and sustain wealth. Why? Because they're not chasing vanity metrics, they're building something bigger than themselves. You're part of that small tribe who understands that money is a servant, not a master. And that perspective is a spiritual superpower. That's why sudden wealth is on the horizon for you, not because you played the lottery of life, but because you passed the tests of character. God saw you remain faithful with the little. He saw you sow seeds even when your own soil was dry. You gave when you could have held back. You stayed honest when cheating would have been easier. You didn't manipulate, you didn't scheme, you didn't take spiritual shortcuts. Instead, you grew your roots deep in faith, and now it's time for the fruit. But let's get one thing straight. This isn't about getting rich quick. That's the world's method. Kingdom wealth doesn't come with strings, shame, or scams. It comes with strategy. When heaven funds you, it's because there's a mission attached. And your mission, it's massive. Whether it's feeding the homeless, launching that non-profit, opening schools, starting a shelter for battered women, or building a kingdom business that gives people a second chance. You've been dreaming big because God put something big inside of you. You're not asking to be rich. You're preparing to be responsible. You're doing the budgeting, the planning, the spiritual cleansing, and the character checks. Because you understand this next level isn't about luxury, it's about leadership. The overflow isn't for your ego, it's for impact. And that's exactly why God can trust you with more. He knows you'll build others up, not just your own brand, so get ready. The floodgates are opening, not because you begged, but because you've been becoming. Becoming trustworthy, becoming wise, becoming a vessel. And heaven never ignores a vessel who's emptying themselves to make room for purpose. The wealth coming your way isn't a reward, it's a release. You're not chasing money, you're walking in mission. And because of that, your hands are about to overflow. Chosen one, here's the truth. Sudden wealth is not merely coming you, it's flowing you. That means you're not just a receiver of abundance, you're a divine vessel, entrusted with the responsibility to move resources for a higher purpose. Every hardship you've endured, every tear that slipped from your eyes, and every silent battle fought in faith rather than fear, these were not wasted moments. They were divine deposits into your spiritual account, laying the groundwork for the blessing that's now on its way. That inner shift you've been sensing, the restlessness, the urge to prepare, the strange peace in the storm, is not in your imagination. It's a spiritual alert. Heaven is opening the floodgates of financial favor, and yes, your name is inscribed on that heavenly ledger. But here's the educational truth. In the Bible, Joseph went from prison to palace, not because he chased wealth, but because he stewarded his integrity, remained obedient, and used wisdom when the opportunity came. Likewise, your elevation isn't random, it's orchestrated. Wealth, in the biblical sense, is always connected to purpose. Deuteronomy 8:18 reminds us that it is God who gives the power to produce wealth, not for selfish gain, but to fulfill his covenant. So when that blessing arrives, it won't just be for you to flash or flaunt. It's to fund visions, build communities, uplift others, and reflect God's glory in places where poverty once prevailed. Stay humble, stay in alignment, keep walking in obedience. The enemy knows what's coming and will try to distract you with ego, doubt, or shortcuts. Don't fall for it. When God releases this breakthrough, it will shake the systems of this world. Why? Because you're not just a millionaire in the making. You're a kingdom mover with divine direction and a heart that beats for something eternal. Your spiritual bank account, built through prayers, sacrifices, and relentless faith, is about to manifest in your physical life. But always remember, it was never just about the money. The wealth is the mission is eternal. This is your moment, chosen one. Steward it well.